go way back, and was it about 30 years ago?
Almost.
She called me, and I was new we're in the first year or two in St. George, and they wanted me to judge the performance competitions. And so I did, and stayed in her home, and we struck up a friendship ever since. And so it's always just lovely. And she is one of my idols. Another one of my idols here is Nancy Guyman, who we were roommates at BYU way back. I was an undergrad, she was a grad student, and she taught at home. I don't know if she knows this. I still remember a lesson that I was getting ready to leave. She gave a lesson to a student. It was the most motivating. I heard firsthand how a teacher teaches and gives motivation and love for music to a student.
I think that was one of Bonnie's.
Oh, great, thank you. All my little notes. Anyway, I've never forgotten that. And one of the things I want to talk about today is the purpose of piano teaching. And the title of my presentation is Teaching to Transform, Inspiring the Best of Your Students. And I know that can mean a whole lot of different things for different people and different teachers. So the first thing I would like to do is talk about the purpose of teaching. So let's just get a list. What is your purpose as a piano teacher or in teaching? Let's just say either one word or short phrases. What would you say? Yeah?
Love of music.
Yep. Okay. Okay. What else? Nancy?
Love of people or students.
Yeah. Okay, all good students. What else? Yeah?
Work yourself out of the job.
Work yourself out of the
Meaning
job.
that they become competent musicians themselves, able to correct and fix their own mistakes.
Okay, so build confident musicians. And that we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, what else?
How about brain building?
Brain building?
Brain building.
Awesome. And tell us what you mean by that.
Just creating connections in the brain, creating better readers, better mathematicians, better athletes. Piano does all that.
Awesome. It does. It actually does. What else? Yeah.
Maybe we could say brain-body connections too.
Awesome.
To inspire.
Isn't that wonderful? Inspire. What else? Anything? Okay, and I just, in this handout, put a bunch of ideas, and we'll talk about that. By the way, Eugene mentioned Marvin Blickenstaff. This came out last year, Inspired Piano Teaching, and he is, would you say there is nobody like Marvin Blickenstaff. Years ago, probably in the 90s, I went up, do you remember when he was the featured guest?
That's when I was the state president. I invited him.
You invited him?
Yeah, he was my idol. If people make me cry performing, he made me cry teaching.
He did, and he was the main presenter, but I think it was that one. He gave the closing session, and I was, earlier in my career, and I remember that he spoke for an hour and nobody moved, and we were so mesmerized. His perspective and everything who he is as a teacher and musician was amazing, and we all said, keep going. Do you remember that? And I have never forgotten it, and this is published in 2024. I've leafed through it, why we teach, The Many Faces of Music, preparation, it is fabulous. In fact, let me pass it around if you guys wanna, just give it back when we're done. So, I could never say enough good about him. Now, where is my little outline here? So, why is it important to know our purpose in teaching? I mean, we all need a paycheck, and nobody said that, but why is it you sit down, you start teaching, or stand up, or dance around, or do whatever? Why should we have a purpose? What do you think?
I think you're more effective when you teach.
Okay, awesome, effective?
It's more enjoyable because
Yeah.
you have a purpose that you're working towards.
Yeah, okay, what else?
Some kids are really hard at first.
Oh,
They come to you.
Really?
They don't want to teach, they don't want to learn, or they're atypical, and you're like, most people would probably not keep you as a student. But if you have your purpose, then you can keep them, and in a few years, it's amazing the difference.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? So, I teach pedagogy like you, Jane. I started our pedagogy program about 20 years ago. And one of the things I have students and at Utah Tech, back when it was Dixie, when we started offering pedagogy and literature, we had a whole group of community teachers that would come and take the classes. And tuition was very cheap back then. So, and we got this group of teachers and it went for years and years and years, and then we got our music degree and everything changed. So, they were, it was amazing, and they were motivating to each other, but one of the things I had them do was to draft a piano teaching philosophy, or teaching philosophy. And that was like, most of them, nobody knew what it was, and the internet was not what it is now. You can go piano teaching philosophy and get, how many examples. But it was, and then what I had to do, they did it early on, and they were like, I don't know what to do. I gave them examples, and then at the end of the semester, I had them redo it, edit it, let's update it, and the difference between when they sat down and went, I don't know what to do, to the end was amazing. So to go along with our purpose in teaching, which your philosophy should include that, that's one of the things I would do. So let me, okay. I just saw this quote yesterday, I touch the future, I teach. And that was stated by Kristen McAuliffe, who was at the Challenger disaster. I touch the future, I teach, and I love that. So, when I think about my purpose in teaching, I look back to my youth or childhood, if you will, and there's a couple of things that really stand out. And when I was, I'm the third of 12 children, and my mother is a very fine pianist. And so I have very vivid memories of laying in bed at night and listening to her practice. And as I've gone through the years, I always know when it's a piece that she used to play or practice, because I always get this emotional connection. And that was interesting. And as I got deeper and deeper into my music studies, I thought, wow, that's really significant. Now, we don't all have a mother or a parent who plays, but there are different things you can do, which I'll talk about in a minute. Another memory I have, which was really significant, is my parents took me, and I think I was the only one, but I was the child that played all the time. I grew up in Southern California, and a pianist, and I don't remember who it was, I was probably maybe 6 or 7, was playing the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto at the Hollywood Bowl with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And my parents took me, and it was unreal just as a child to experience that. So these are a few little things I want to bring in as we talk about. One other thing about my mother, in 2017 she had a hemorrhagic stroke. And being the fine pianist that she was, and too long of a story, but she was in ICU, and then she was in the neuro specialty rehab for 9.5 weeks, and regular rehab. The thing that was so heart-wrenching was she couldn't speak for a long time, but if hemorrhagic, they told us, they said, she may not make it, but if she does, she will probably be okay, but it's gonna take a while. So she did a lot of rehab and all that, and the one thing that happened is after a few weeks, one of my brothers, all my siblings were visiting her, and they wheeled her into the dining room where there was a little spinet piano. And they brought her wheelchair right up to it, and she has an arrangement of Love One Another, and this is what she did first time they sat her down. She went like this. And it was long in between each note. And then what was fascinating to us is that she didn't miss a note. She had to think in between each one. But she always went to that song, which was interesting. And so then we, the doctors and therapists, they had all these tests and all that. We measured her progress by how she played. And then 2 days later, somebody else would bring her in, and the song, it wasn't quite so long in between the notes, and then really, you think how old was she? She was 80. She did her left hand alone, and she'd had this stroke, and so then at some point she has a beautiful arrangement. She started doing it together, and it was a lot of weeks and a lot of months, and then we knew she was going to be okay when she got it up to normal, up to par. And who knew? And we were like, we know how to measure her progress. It's not on if she can tell you how to play bridge or all the things they were making her do, or even read. It was the music came back. Yeah.
So I can testify to that, because 19 years ago at the age of 50 I had a stroke, and the doctor wanted me to go to physical therapy, and I said I don't see where it will do me any good except for my body. So I started taking piano lessons, and that's how I was started, because that is the only way. So when I went back to my doctor for a checkup, my doctor said, I thought you were not doing physical therapy, and I said, I am not. And he says, but your progress is so great. I said, I am taking piano lessons. But I told my piano teacher, I said, hey, I had a stroke. I promised not to yell at you, but I promised to cry a lot.
There you go. Awesome. So now let's just take these little examples, and I'm going to give another one. Years ago, I started, not the same year, but I taught a young girl, Hillary, and she was 6, and so I started her right from the beginning. Her mom called me, and we had lots of conversations. The mother was very, very, very into what we were doing. And her older sister was a pianist, and lots of music in the home, and so she just soared. Did the whole everything and all that. And she got into the teen years. One of the most talented students I've ever had, and she wanted to quit. Her mom called me and she goes, I don't know what to do. And I said, you've got to hang on. You just have to get them through those difficult years. And so my tactic in that point, when you think of nurturing and transforming, inspiring a student, was I had to, during that year or two, I had to, because she was in the intermediate, late intermediate levels, we had to get pieces that she loved. I mean, really, really. And she did other things, but she always had, and her mom called it, she said, thank you for giving her a Hillary piece, because, you know, she would do these other, you know, whatever a well-rounded diet of technique and theory and everything, but the repertoire, I had to have at least one piece that she could just do. And so we did that. That's how we got her through the early teens. Okay, pause on Hillary. Then, about the same time that she was going through this rough patch, another mother called me, and this was when I was just teaching at home. I didn't have my full-time position at the college. She said, I want you to take my son, and he'll be a little bit of a challenge, but he's talented. And so he was in the teen years, and it ended up that they were the same age, and they went to the same schools and all of that. So he came in and played for me, and I just thought, I don't know what to do. I mean, he was playing early advanced stuff, not well. I mean, it was messy. The rhythm was all over the place, and yet he was learning these pieces where technically it was all that, but there was no structure or anything. And but I knew his parents, and so have you ever taken a child and you go, okay, I'll teach. So after a few weeks, I called his mother and I said, do you trust me? And she said, yes, I do. I said, we have to go way back. I mean, he was borderline advanced repertoire playing. It was not good. And so I was trying to, and nothing was working. And so he grumbled a little bit, but I talked to the mother periodically because he was 12 or 13. And so my preference is that my relationship with middle and high school kids is with them. I will communicate a lot with their mother, parent, mother or father, whichever one is more involved. So his rhythm was not good. So we went back, and I found lots of repertoire pieces, early intermediate, that were basic rhythm. I took anything dotted rhythm out because he couldn't do it. And we just got that, as Eugene has been saying, that rhythm, the steady beat, and all of that. And we did tons of repertoire like that. And then I started, and it was fun, and I started finding early intermediate repertoire, and we did that. And then I took him through, I also took him through, I don't remember which, it might have been the Pathways or Francis Clark of I said, we're gonna spend 3 minutes of each lesson sight reading, and then I gave him things, and he did that again to get the reading up to par, to get the rhythm, and we're working on technique. And so I spent his entire middle school building up his skills, his foundation, which he didn't have. And his mother kept saying, he's practicing, he's doing it, he grumbles. And then when we got through to late intermediate, which probably took me 3 years of this massive going back and putting everything in place, then it's almost like the lid blew open, and he could then look at advanced literature and figure it out, and it was all, he could learn it, and he was excited and interested. All the while, I have my other student, Hillary, we got her through the rough patch, and they ended up at the same high school, And the most probably heart-wrenching thing I ever had was they were both up for Sterling Scholar at the same high school, the same year. And she got winner and he was runner-up, but that was hard, and I had to have a long talk with him about, you know, there's only one winner and you just whatever. But to his credit, he kept going, and she played the Cesson Concerto No. 2 in high school with our orchestra, and he played the Rachmaninoff Second with our orchestra when he was in college, and so you never know. I mean, I would have never thought he could have done that. So to his parents' credit, and to his, that they let us fill in the foundation. If we don't fill in the foundation, what happens? Eugene, what happens if we don't?
You cannot build a house without that foundation.
Yeah, yeah. So they might play some, you know, great sounding pieces, but a lot of things are missing, and so it just depends. Now, here's another one. Before I do this, what does the word transform? We say teaching to transform. What does that mean? What's the word transform mean? Yeah.
I think it's a change in mindset.
Okay. Change in mindset. Anything else come to your mind?
Build upon.
Build upon. Good.
I would say become something new.
Yeah. All right. Have you seen that happen in your teaching? And what do you think? What brings that about? How does this transformation come about? And it doesn't happen overnight.
Positivity.
Okay. Good. What else?
One thing that is meaningful to me is that every student is so different, but the work that it takes to help them be successful, the scaffolding, is, if you're really a fine teacher, that's why you love teaching, is because you probably learn more than they do ever.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that's a transformation not only for them, but for you
Yeah.
as an educator.
Good. Were you going to say something?
Well, I think to be transformed, they have to be changed from the inside.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, I like when you were saying, I was just having some memories. One time I had a student that really was a challenge, and then but in 1 year, I was so delighted when my colleagues at school said, she not only plays so differently now, her eyes look different. Like the whole thing changed. And I like, you know, the transformation means that they believe in it so much that they develop that much confidence that they totally almost become a new person. And that's so amazing to see.
Thank you. COVID did a lot of interesting things to all of us, didn't it? And I did something. So early in my career, I did a lot of private teaching at home, and built up my studio. And then at whatever point, I started teaching at the college, and then got a full-time position, and here we are. And so then you teach piano majors, or we have a lot of music minors that we include in our program. And I've always kept, because I teach pedagogy, I've always had a little core of students, because how do I teach about what's, how do you do this if I haven't done it for 30 years? And so I've kept a little core of students. And, but it was interesting, as we were going through COVID, and then we all had to learn to teach online and do however you do. And then, there was a shift I just have noticed a shift. There's a lot more anxiety and stress and in students, in our college students even, but in young students, and periodically teachers call me or parents call me and they want a referral for a teacher or whatever. in a period of time, as we were coming out of COVID, I started getting calls from parents, and, you know, music teaching privately was in an interesting place, but I had a few parents who begged me to save their child and, you know, and help them to love piano again, and so that was interesting. So I took on one young girl, and she, I knew her former teacher, who was rock solid, and they had had a lot of stress in the home, and the parents were divorcing, and so there were a lot of external elements. And the mother brought her to me, and I was gonna try to find her another teacher. And I just thought, you know what, let me just teach. I just thought, I'll just teach her for a little bit. She doesn't have the most natural talent, and she just, the connection of reading and rhythm, and she was so shy. And so I just, same thing, I went to the mother, I said, we're gonna go all the way back. Is that okay? I mean, yes, and so I took her through, and again, she was very shy, and still is, but it's interesting. So I've had her a few years, and she is now in the intermediate level. She now is not where she never said a word during lessons. She now will talk to me, oh, this happened, or, you know, but it took a long time. I mean, we had to. So I look at that and I think, what is my purpose in teaching her? She's not, and I hate to say that. I look at my wonderful student Greg, you say she won't be probably ever a piano major at a university and do all of that. But what is my purpose in teaching her? Helping her love music and giving her the foundation and the joy that we all get. Does that make sense? And so it was interesting because, so I had her. I have another student, the mother called a different family. She called around the same time, please teach my daughter, please. And so I had her play, and she came and played and all that. And she couldn't sight read hardly. And then I find out, so in the conversation, I'm watching the time. Okay. I asked her, how much do you practice every day? 5 minutes. I said, oh, that's going to change. And they all looked at me. So I just talked about, I said, I promise you, if you do what we work on in the lesson and all that, and she was intermediate, and probably late intermediate, but had no business playing the stuff she was playing. I just said, if you will, I started her, I said 30 minutes a day, and I didn't even care what she did for 30 minutes a day, but let's just get that consistency. And after a couple of weeks, she came into her list, she goes, wow, I really like practicing. And she's now a senior. She is just getting into advanced literature. She just went gangbusters on all the technical skills, everything that we put in, and rhythm again, and she will dig in and just figure it out, where this was a girl who could not play hardly anything. And again, you have to have the parents' trust. Isn't that interesting? But for her, she's going to be she's going into pre-med, and but for me, my goal in transforming her, and she has to do a lot of the work. It's not just me. Isn't that, you feel like that's true? Yeah. But hopefully I inspire or motivate, and I do a lot of it with the repertoire, but so, okay, I want to read you this quote, if I can find it. Well, I'm not, oh, here it is. Okay, this is by Carl Palnup. He was the director of music at Boston Conservatory. This is from many years ago. he said this, he spoke to the freshman music majors at Boston Conservatory. He said, if we were a medical school and you were here as a med student practicing appendectomies, you'd take your work very seriously, because you would imagine that some night at 2 a.m. someone is going to come into the emergency room and you're gonna have to save their life. Well, my friends, someday at 8 p.m., someone is gonna walk into your concert hall and bring you a mind that is confused, a heart that is overwhelmed, a soul that is weary. Whether they go out whole again will depend partly on how well you do your craft. And don't you think it's interesting that no matter what the focus, Macy's gonna be pre-med, but when she plays for her grandparents, because I see them in town, they'll say, oh, we just love it, we love it. And so she does perform here and there, but she doesn't wanna do music as a career, and yet she is totally absorbed in the whole thing and will do this forever. The same with this other cute student who's very quiet and shy. The light goes on when she masters a piece, and then she's just so excited. And so, anyway, let's see, one more. I just want to close with this. I read a book, or part of a book, way back. It's called Developing Talent in Young People. It was published in 1995 by Benjamin Bloom, and it's the whole point of this was they did a study and did research, extensive research into high-level artists or tennis. They did pianists, tennis players, scientists. They had a whole list, and they picked 25 that they wanted to research, and they said they got about 20 in each area. And so I focused a lot on the pianists. There was something interesting that they found in this. Now, these are very high-level professionals, but I think we can take this thinking about inspiring and transforming our students. They found that almost all of them started early. Now, we're not necessarily talking 3 or 4, but in the elementary school years. So typically, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's when they started studying. They found that there was a typical phase 1 where in the elementary years where the parents were, it was absolutely vital that the parents were involved in that. That whether the parent comes to the lesson, and I'm not here to tell you they need to or they don't, that's your personal choice. And that there was definitely that triangle between teacher, student, and parent. It had to, and it was all of this. Stage 2 or phase 2 was usually the middle and high school years. And this is when, and I've just given you a couple of examples, this is when you're more teacher and student and less with the parent. You need to communicate with the parent, but the student should be accountable to the teacher. And this is when you're really forming, think about what Jane just taught last hour, they're becoming more proficient at technique and theory and all that. You started when they're young. And what did you notice in this video is that back in the young years, there's a fun, loving, just wonderful environment for the student. And so that's the phase 1 elementary. Phase 2, they're becoming more and more proficient at what they're doing. Phase 3 is the mastery phase, and very often that happens at some point in the college years, or if they're very, very serious, it would happen in the high school years. But what I think is interesting is if we, and I had to learn this, that if I, especially with teenagers, make them accountable to me, because if they're 14 and they're not happy with their mom, but she's the one telling them to practice, whatever. And so like with cute Macy, I just said, we're gonna practice every day, and it transformed her. She just saw all of that. And then by the time they get in that phase 3, that's the mastery. They're doing things because they love it. They already know they love it, but they're doing it for the intrinsic motivation and because the music demands it of them and all of that. So that's just a little thing. If you want some reading, I'm not even sure if the book is still out there, but there are some, you can get some copies. So anyway, my main mantra in all of this is we teach for the students and help them love it and do our best to inspire, and there you go. And there's more ideas on the little handout, and we'll go from there. Any questions? Yeah. Developing Talent in Young People by Benjamin Bloom.
I have a question. I was wanting to know, did your mother have the music or did she do it by memory?
They did put music in front of her. We did, like she could sight read some, but it was very labored, but it just was such an interesting, when you think of the love and the joy that was finally able to come back out again, that was amazing. Yeah.
How do you make students accountable to you?
Yeah, how do you get it to practice?
And we may need to talk about this at a different time, I don't know, but the whole practicing issue, I think, like, I've got some younger students whose parents do not expect it, even though I've talked to the parents and said, this is what I expect if you want to take lessons from me. But when that's not happening from the parent side, how do you make it happen from your side?
One of our assignments in pedagogy is to create a practice chart that works, and everybody's is different. Some people do it, some people don't. Little rewards. When they're young in that first phase, rewards are awesome, whatever it is. I have 2 young students, I won't tell you how this happened, but I had to find cute stickers and all that, and then I know teachers who have a really complicated reward system, and they follow through. If this student does this, they get this many points or whatever. Years ago, I had a kid who, he was brilliant, but the parents kind of left him alone, and I tried all the different rewards I'd done, and it didn't work for him, so I did points, and that worked. But he's probably a scientist today, we put point values on his performance, which that goes against my nature, but it worked for him. Everything else I tried didn't work. And so that's the thing that's interesting. And I'll finish with this list. Just a few weeks ago, I have 2 little elementary school students, and I haven't done that for a while. And this little kid, cutest little thing on the planet, but he walked into his lesson, he goes, "This is my last lesson." He's 9. Wouldn't the mother, and I'd only had him for a few months, it was too long a story. I said, oh, so that, last lesson with anybody but for me, it's usually a senior in high school, and they're going off to So we had this, and then I get a message from his mother that night. She goes, "Oh, I am so sorry." So he came in and he must have said, I had my last lesson, and the parents they had talked to him about practicing because his practicing had gone down, and I only had him a few months. So they said, if you don't practice, you can't have piano lessons. So he came to his lesson and said, this is it. So the mother will you please take me back? So what I do with, and interesting with a 9-year-old, I usually keep the parents in that triangle, but we talk about it every single week, and he is now practicing, so I guess it was pretty traumatic. And he cried when he came in. This is my last lesson, and there were tears and all. So we're back on track. Isn't that funny? So there you go. And it's different for every child. So I had to figure out something for him also. Anyway, any other quick questions? Because now we're back to you, Jane. Thank you.